Paul Sharland, Associate Director of House. Welcome to the Rebel Agent podcast.
Thank you very much, Dave.
It was about a year ago that I first came across you online with your podcast, which is probably the best podcast on Dubai real estate you do with Stephen Leckie.
Thank you very much.
You've changed the format of that recently, haven't you? You've started introducing guests. It's not. Did you get fed up with Stephen?
You can't get fed up with Stephen. You just accept that Stephen is Stephen. I'm sure he'll love me saying that. No, we just do the podcast together. We came at a similar time. Stephen came in 2003. I came in 2005. So we sort of just chat and about Dubai in the past and the present and what we see in the future. But yeah, I think just apparently we have got a bit of a captive audience, so we thought we'd mix it up a bit and bring in some people to keep it relevant.
Well, it works really well, and we'll discuss that more. Maybe you could just sort of give a bit about your background, and then we'll discuss that, and plenty else to dive into.
Okay. So I'm from London. I'm from Walthamstow originally. I'm a East London boy, West Ham supporter.
Yeah, we'll get onto that.
Okay, or not. So I worked in the city for 10 years. I was a FX broker. I worked for Marshalls and for Tulip Prebon. I'd always wanted to travel, but never sort of really got the opportunity. So when I was around 29, had young family. The boys were 2 and 5. And effectively, I was given sort of a half opportunity in Marbella. I had a very good lawyer friend there who had a Lexland Abogados, and the market at the time was extremely busy. He said, "Paul, look, come over, set up a company. I'll do the legal side of things. You bring the clients, and it could work very well." And I did that for 3 years, and it did work really well. That's from 2002 to 2005, and then the market was changing there. And in 2005, we moved to Dubai. So I'll stop there with that was the beginning of the Dubai journey from 2005.
There were quite a few people that came over from Spain initially.
Yes.
And it must have been a great experience for you to get stuck into the Dubai market, having done Costa del Sol first.
Yeah, it was. I found it incredibly refreshing because what in the Marbella market, it had been busy for a couple of years, but it had significantly slowed down. So I was getting, maybe 1 or 2 inquiries a week. So when I came to Dubai, so I started at Dubai Luxury Homes September the 1st. And literally the phone was non-stop with people, I want to buy a palm villa, or I want to buy a shoreline, or, I want to buy in the marina. And I was taken aback by the level of interest, which I just wasn't used to.
Yeah. And how long were you at Dubai Luxury Homes, was it?
Yeah, so Dubai Luxury Homes, I think that was formed in 2002 by Pauline Leal, who's still here. Uh-huh. And so, me and Stephen Leckie, we started there 2005. I started September, he started July. And then we sort of had, we had 3 brilliant years up until September the 15th, 2008,
And what happened then?
When Lehman left us, when Lehman went bankrupt, and unfortunately the whole market changed. But no, back to Dubai Luxury Homes. They were bought out by Sotheby's in 2010.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And so the Bees bought any other real estate companies, or was that it and then just expanded?
Yeah, I just think at the time, Sotheby's, they sort of entered the market, in the good old days, and they just a lot of the real estate companies suffered badly after 2008. 2009, 2010, a lot of the companies no longer existed, but they took a different view that the market is going to come back at some stage, and they were obviously very right, and they looked to build from that stage. So they actually they looked to build up in a down market.
Yeah. And then did you leave Dubai around the financial crash time? Or?
Yeah, so for us, we had a brilliant time up until sort of 2008, September the 15th. Then there was a couple of rough years. Dubai did suffer quite badly. I mean, it was a worldwide financial crash, but Dubai was in such a bubble which we didn't actually recognise beforehand.
Absolutely.
In 2000, up in beginning of 2008 up until September. I mean, the market was crazy. Now we look back at it.
Because a lot of markets, whether it's property or whatever, have a blow off top at the end, don't they?
Yeah.
Before it crashes.
It had been to me, the way to summarise it is like in the summer of 2008, if someone had said to me, "What's Dubai like?" I'd have said it's the best place in the world. If someone had asked me what Dubai is like in the summer of 2009, I'd have given a very, very different answer. Sure. It would have been quite a depressing answer. And the thing was, from 2008 sort of to 2012 to 2013, that's when the property market started again. But for me, I'd sort of lost faith in property. I wasn't particularly happy, but I didn't want to leave Dubai. The kids were in a good school, so I went back into broking. I went back into DIFC. Brilliant. I actually got a job with GFI. And being back there for a couple of months, a friend of mine who had a trading company in New York, he said, well, Paul, fancy coming over here? And a couple of months later, I rocked up in New York and was trading from there. But I only actually lasted 3 months in New York. Okay. It wasn't particularly my cup of tea.
Had you moved the family?
No. So I would have...
Oh, that was fortunate.
Yeah, which was very, very fortunate. So the idea was I'd go first for 3-6 months, check it out, see if we wanted to do it. I think New York, it's a great city. I think they sell it very well. I think if you scratch beneath the surface, it's not quite what they make it out to be. I enjoyed it. It was a good experience. But from 3 months in New York, I got transferred back to London. So then all the family went back to London with us. We got an apartment or a flat, I should say, in Shoreditch, so I could walk to work at Bishopsgate. So I started at 4:00 in the morning. I was doing Asian hours. And then we put the kids into what we believe to be a good school in London. We lasted, I think, about 6 or 7 months, and we said, what have we done? We've put the kids, they've been going to school in Dubai for the last 7 years. They've had a great education. They're doing lots of sports and rugby and everything else. They're doing very different things in London. We've made a big mistake here. And then literally 3 months later, we were back in Dubai. So I think we only actually left for 1 school year. And what was great for the kids was that they went to Jess Ranches and they left, but Jess Ranches, because they've only gone for a short period of time, they let them back into the school. So it was brilliant.
That all dropped in really well, didn't it?
Yeah, it did, yeah.
Yeah. And by this time, sort of 2012, things are starting to get better again, aren't they?
Yeah, so
in Dubai.
Yeah, so with the Dubai, I'd say the 2 bad years I could see were 2009, 2010. There's a lot of people licking their wounds. For me, it was almost as if every person I was dealing with or coming into contact with, like in any business, in any situation, they'd been affected by the crash. They'd lost money. But when we look back, if you'd have said what was the best year to buy real estate in Dubai, it was actually 2009. Because that was when it was in the absolute lows. So, yeah, it just does go to show.
So you had some desperate sellers and...
Well, when someone says to me, what was the crash like, how severe was it? And I'll give one quick story because I think it can sum it up quite well. So I had a client, he bought a garden home from Nikhil originally for 2.5 million dirhams on the Palm. So he's called me up in August 2008. He said, Paul, I'm thinking of selling my garden home. What do you think? And I said, well, you get 10 million dirhams for it. You sell it within 2 weeks. And he would have. That was the price.
Great profit.
And it was busy. So he and Denard. Anyway, that was August. September came. September the 15th came. So after that, things were very different. So he's called me in August and said, Paul, I'm thinking of selling it. And I've told him he'll get 10 million. He's called me back at the end of October. And he said, Paul, do you think you can get me back my 2.5 million dirhams? Amazing, yeah? So had the market dropped by 75%, or was it panic selling, or did nobody know what was going on? Yeah. And I can honestly say for 6 months, we just didn't know what was going on. Nobody could price anything. It was just like...
Well, banks weren't lending.
Yeah, it was everybody in Dubai or who had anything to do with Dubai or had any business to do with Dubai. It was like, we don't know what's happening. Can somebody give us some answers? And for 6 months, nobody had any answers. Sure. It was it was a drastic change.
So what happened? Did you sell it?
I don't know what this guy did. I think he kept hold of it actually.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
What would you value that at now?
You'd probably be looking at 30 million.
Yeah, and a lot of that growth has come the last couple of years, hasn't it?
Yeah, so when you look back, the market picked up. I think it was probably when they announced Expo in 2013. So and the market had been quiet then for 5 years. So 2013, 2014 were actually 2 very good years. But from 2015, and I think you could quite safely say this, it wasn't until the beginning of 2021 that we did see that, the big uptick. Yeah. So effectively we had 6 years of a very quiet market and a frustratingly slow market. But yeah, for the last 3.5 years, this is the place.
Absolutely. And you and I both think that there's a lot more growth to come. But just, sorry, if we just go back to your story. So 2012, which real estate agency did you join then? Was that when you came back into it?
No, so in 2012, I left and went into DIFC.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. That was, yeah. So when did you come back to Dubai?
So I came back to Dubai at the beginning of 2014. And I got a job at Sloane's Real Estate. And Sloane's was run by Pauline Lil, who originally opened Dubai Luxury Homes.
Ah, okay. So you had the contact there.
Yes. So I was there. So I was at Sloane's for 2 years. Then it was 2016. And then for us as a family, we had to make a decision. So our youngest son, Henry, he was 16. It was whether we did another 2 years in Dubai for his higher education, or we'd go back to Europe or the UK. So at the time, we weren't, Dubai was quiet. We weren't particularly excited about anything. So we moved back to Marbella, and Henry done 2 years of sixth form there. So we ended up being in Marbella for 2 years, and we went back to London for a year, then we came back here.
Ah, great. And is that when you went to Haus?
Yeah, so I met Simon in 2005. We come over at a similar time. So we'd sort of worked together at different agencies, but we'd always kept in contact.
Simon being one of the directors.
Yeah, so Simon Baker and Luke Remington and James Perry, so the three original House gentlemen. But yeah, so I'd known Simon for a long time, and we'd already stayed in contact. We'd seen each other in London, etc. So I'd spoken to him when I said I was thinking about coming back, and he said, well, you're going to come round to me, aren't you? And I said, yeah, see you in a few weeks.
Brilliant. It's interesting because when I was first out here, 2004 to 2007, and then I came back last year. But when I typically met people, say, on the golf course or various places, and I'd say, oh, how long have you been in Dubai? And it was very common for the answer, well, the first time we were here, it was between this and this, second time, third time. And it's a story, isn't it, how people, once you've been in Dubai and you've had the buzz and you've enjoyed it, sometimes circumstances are such. I went back home, you've moved to various places, but so many people end up coming back here, don't they?
And what you're saying there is so true, and it's actually happening more now. So this is my third time back, and I've got to say, this is arguably the most enjoyable. But one thing which I've seen, and this is I could do with sort of my boys. So years ago, when Dubai was smaller, it was seen as a bit of a village, although it wasn't. So the kids would go to school here. Now, when they got to 18, most of the kids would leave. They go back to Europe, or they go travelling. They go back to Canada or the US, Australia, and maybe one or two would come back. But generally, they'd done their sort of their school life in Dubai, and then they went back to wherever they. Now, you could say that of all the kids that leave, 9 out of 10 come back to Dubai. So maybe they, like my two. So one went to London, he got a job in London, couldn't work out what this tax was, couldn't work out if you went out for a drink after work, why someone would want to hit you or stab you. So it's a phenomenon which now, and I see this continuing, the people who've been brought up in Dubai, they do go away, they see other parts of the world and the rest of the world, they see it's probably not quite as good as what they were told or what they believed it to be, and then they want to come back.
Yeah.
Everything is here.
And I think if you ask what is tax, I would just answer it's theft.
Yeah,
up to a point. Yeah, isn't it? It's and there's a budget coming up in the UK soon, and we know tax rates are going to go up again.
Yeah, and I'll give you this is a phenomenon that's been going on. So I know a lot of the boys that work in the city and brokers over here. A typical example, if you're a trader, a banker or a broker, and you're working in London or Frankfurt, Paris, Geneva, now if you're earning $1 million a year, do you think, right, I'm earning $1 million a year, I'm paying at least $500 in tax, I'm paying school fees, the weather's not very good, everyone seems miserable, immigration's a problem, crime's a problem. Okay, right. I can relocate to Dubai with my office, work from that office, put my kids into a great school, and that $1 million a year I'm getting paid, I get paid in my pocket $1 million. So they're going to a nicer place to live, a safer place to live, and they're going to double their salary. I'm trying to work out why Dubai is so attractive. So it's
a no-brainer.
It's an absolute no-brainer, surely. I mean, I'd say I probably knew less than 10 people in DIFC a few years ago. I know, you know, and I haven't worked in the city for 10 years. I know at least 50 people in there who've come from Europe.
Yeah. And we're just going to see more and more of this, aren't we?
Yeah, and you know, you've got also obviously the elections in the UK. We know taxes are going to go up. You've got the problem in France. It's where it's going to be, you know, a left-wing government with very high taxes, or you could have a right-wing government in Germany. I think it's all these things going on in the world, which, you know, all of these problems which continue. All it does to me is just put Dubai on a higher pedestal of making it even more attractive, because it just doesn't encounter any of these problems which the rest of the old world does continually.
Yeah, I think the only competition it's going to get is from maybe other Emirates within the UAE, possibly Saudi, but they are, in many cases, they are behind.
Yes.
And Dubai's already done, isn't it?
Yes.
It's so livable now, and we thoroughly enjoy it.
Yeah.
So we've discussed various issues in other parts of the world. Where are you finding most of your clients are coming from at the moment? Is it mainly the UK market, being British yourself?
It's always been from the UK. One of the countries which has surprised me over the last couple of years is Germany. I mean, I used to deal with Germans years ago, you know, quite cautious, meticulous, want all the information. But for the last 3 years, the German interest has gone up exponentially, and you know, the conversations we have now, which we never actually used to have with the Germans, is immigration, is crime, is tax. I think they've got this new property tax. So more Germans are buying here than ever before. I think they're the number one buyers at Expo.
Really?
Yeah, but also as well, we're dealing with a lot of Dutch, a lot of Italians, French, Asian Canadians, Australians. I really feel, I'd say in the last 6 months for me, I've literally dealt with people from literally all over the world. You know, I'd say last year I was dealing with, I'd say 8 out of 10 of my clients were Europeans. But this year it's. I mean, we're always going to get the crypto business. So obviously, somebody who's made money on crypto. I mean, they could be from anywhere, but they want to have sort of some base in Dubai.
It's crypto friendly here, isn't it?
Yeah, but you've got all the nationalities like that we generally deal with, because we deal with a lot of Brits and the Europeans anyway. But no, for Dubai, it is open to the world. I'd say more than ever before now.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's interesting what you say about Germany. I mean, 1 or 2 Germans I've spoken to have come over here. They're worried about conscription for their kids.
Really?
Yeah. And there's plenty of other issues in Germany. It just seems to be a trend throughout the world, doesn't it? Concern, and Dubai continues to be that great place. One of the things I've seen you talk about on your podcast is if you rank Dubai in terms of cost per square foot of property, was it 90th?
Yeah, so we've got this index that we look at. So it literally updates every day. So we've been looking at it, say, for the last 12 months, and Dubai has been sort of between 80th and 120th. Now, what this index is the price per square foot for all the major cities in the world. So the obvious ones, Hong Kong, Singapore, Zurich, London, they're the top 10. So when you actually look at the price of Dubai, price per square foot, now we've obviously got the Palm, downtown Dubai Hills, which are expensive in real terms. But when you actually look at the average price in Dubai, price per square foot, and it's ranking in, say, an average of 90th. I mean, it's unprecedented how much cheaper it is than any other major city. Now, there's been this. The argument years and years ago was, you know, when you're talking about the major cities of the world, you know, your Hong Kongs, Londons, Singapores, you shouldn't include Dubai in that. You know, that they haven't reached that level where you could do that. And that's going back 10, 15 years. Now, everyone's going to be talking about Dubai in their top 5 cities, top 10 cities. So with Dubai talked about in this top 5, then you'd expect prices to have some sort of correspondence to that. But there's absolutely none. I
totally agree.
Yeah. So, yes, if you want to buy a villa on the Palm, you're going to pay a lot of money for it. But if you want to buy a nice 1 or 2 bed apartment with a nice fitted kitchen, with an infinity pool and a gym, when you're looking at, you know, £1 million dirhams, £250,000, it's very affordable to a lot of people.
Yeah, it's got a long way to go, I think.
Massive.
And it is the only place with a palm. It's the only place, well, obviously, it's the only place with the world's tallest building. It's got the world's busiest airport. And that airport's just going to be tiny compared with the new airport that will be, well, the new airport's already started, but it's going to grow to have 5 runways, isn't it?
And what I like about that whole area, and this is when we're speaking to Europeans and Brits about this in particular, they can relate. You say, what's Dubai trying to do? If they were trying to do that in Europe or in the UK, they wouldn't be able to do it anyway. But if they were allowed to, they'd be cutting down forest, they'd be cutting down green belt, they'd be taking away countryside. What you've got in Dubai is you've got this great big area of barren desert, which isn't particularly attractive, which they're going to make usable and extremely attractive, with the infrastructure, with the landscaping, with the parks and communities. And that's what's nice about Dubai. They've identified that area, because Emaar have got 4 developments there. That's where Palm Jebel Ali is. That's where Expo is. So you can see that's where the concentration's going to go. And because they've got this blank canvas, they can start from the beginning. And as we know, with Dubai, they learn as they go along. For instance, like when I moved here 2005, we lived in Arabian ranches. There was one road going up, one road going down. Now that's 16 lanes. So if they're building these new master communities in the new part of Dubai, there'll probably be 20 lanes because they know at some stage they're going to need them. So they always plan ahead. That's what I love about Dubai.
Yeah, and you have the idea, you have the concept, and then they just get on with it and do it. I think HS2 in the UK. Perfect
example.
I first heard about that in the early 2000s, the idea, and then I think Gordon Brown made it more official around 2008. So we're 2024, and it still it's not finished.
Yeah. And it was and Rishi cancelled a third of it last year or the year
from
before,
Birmingham up to the northwest.
But this is absolutely perfect what you're saying here, Dave. So in UK, Europe, if you want to do anything, planning permission, anything in the planning stages is 5 to 10 years. In Dubai, if they say they're going to do it today, it's operational within 5 years. They're still planning it in Europe. I mean, that can-do attitude and the fact that they're not spoiling anything to do it, all they're doing is making things better. Because we know what Sheikh Mohammed wants to do. He wants this to continually make Dubai better, to make it more attractive to more people to live, and he keeps doing it.
Yeah, and the areas that are already built keep improving, don't they? And if they need to do work on the infrastructure, it just gets done. I mean, I was back home in the UK in the summer, and you're just going from one lot of temporary traffic lights to the next,
100%,
to the next, to the next.
I had exactly the same thing.
Did you? And it's just, basically what they want to do is they want to get rid of the motorist. That is why they do. I mean, I came off, I was going around Worcester. I came off the M5, and it's two miles long, this bypass around Worcester. It wasn't quite closed off. One lane was open. I got to the end of it, and there was one guy cutting the grass on the verge, and they'd coned the whole thing off.
Absolutely
and I thought,
ridiculous.
Why don't they just buy him a hard hat or something?
Yeah, I mean, I was in London for 2.5 weeks. I really enjoyed it, but I'd say this year more than other years, I felt that anything I needed to do to pop to the shop or pop to the supermarket, it was a chore. And what I mean by that, exactly what you said, there could be roadworks, or there could be a bridge closed or a road closed, or there's been something's happened, but you can't pop out to do anything anymore. It's like something that would have taken me 20 minutes 10 years ago is now taking me an hour. It's not user friendly.
No,
you look at Dubai, they want to make it, Dubai's user friendly today, and now they're thinking, how can we make it more user friendly tomorrow? That's what they do. And then tomorrow, how can we make it more user friendly for the next day? That's why we love it.
Yeah, exactly. And then with business, I mean, when I closed my business bank account down a couple of years ago before I moved back to Dubai, it was such a relief to do that because they were on my back the whole time. What's your turnover going to be next month? What's it going to be next year? And I spent more time just trying to keep that bank account open. And the client account, they threatened to close that as well. I mean, these accounts that were in credit, and the way I was handling them was perfect, but they just want to seem to get rid of small businesses, and they want to get rid of what we call back home buy-to-let landlords. Because there's more and more legislation coming in. It's more and more difficult to have investment property back there. And where are those people going to go? They're going to look at alternatives, and Dubai is probably the most attractive, I would say, at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, I read an article the other day. There's over 50 hedge funds in the UAE now. And so they're in the top 10 of the most hedge funds in one particular financial area. And I think within 5 years, it'd be in the top 5, which makes absolute sense once again. Because if you're a hedge fund guy, why not work from the UAE and just not pay any tax?
Well, exactly. So we've talked about areas. If I were to buy somewhere today, what would you recommend as an investor?
Well, I think if you look at the Dubai market today, so if you look at the breakdown of units, you're talking 87% apartments, 5% standalone villas and 8% townhouses. So the obvious investment is to buy a house. Yeah. What we know is with the amount of families moving to Dubai, they're going to want bigger units. Another thing that we have recognised is that if the amount of families who are moving to Dubai continues, they're not all going to be able to afford villas and townhouses. So their next choice is going to be 2 and 3 bed apartments. What we've also recognised is that, and we've got the data on this with all the different areas, that with all the apartments they're building, so I'll give an example. Say a developer was building a new development of 100 apartments. Typically speaking, 70 to 80 of those apartments would be studios or 1 beds, maybe 10 to 15 2 beds and 5 3 beds. Now, the developers have been doing this for 20 years. So what we know is that there's an undersupply at the moment because there's so many people moving to Dubai. But obviously at some stage, we're going to meet that peak. But the first areas we're going to see an oversupply is going to be studios and 1 beds, just because there's so many. But what we also recognise is that, as I said, because of all the families moving to Dubai, if you can get into townhouses and villas or the bigger apartments, then that's where we see the best investment and the best capital appreciation over the next 10 years.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Why do you think developers are holding back and building so many studios and 1 beds?
I think when you look at typically a bulk, if I had an investor or a bulk buyer, he might say to me, "Oh, Paul, I'll buy 5 studios, I'll buy 5 1 beds." So it was sort of like easier. But also for the developers, I think they take this view, if they've got 100 units to sell, if 70 or 80 of those are the smaller units, that's the bulk of their inventory, which is the easiest part to sell. Developers think that the bigger units are always going to be harder to sell just because they're a higher ticket price. But as I said, with the data we've got, and with the population increase continuing, the undersupply of 3 bed apartments in particular, along with the townhouses and villas, is going to continue and get greater.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because it is going to be a lot of families coming over, and that there are too many studios and 1 beds. To give you the difference is that in 2005 there were 17 international schools, and then today there's 225 international schools. That's massive change. Yeah, and they're currently building more schools than they've ever built before, and the waiting list of the operating schools are the longest they've ever been. So what we can say from that is, with the schools they're building, these aren't charities, they're businesses. So they're not building these schools unless they think they're going to get the pupils, and they know they're going to get the pupils. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And what about the future? Where do you see Dubai going over the next few years? That's a very interesting question. I'm going to go from my own personal experience. So me and the family, we moved here in 2005. The population then was 1.2 million, and there were 17 international schools. So we fast forward to today, the population's just under 3.7 million. There's 225 international schools. So the population increase at the moment is August to August was 143,000 people moved here. So if 100,000 to 200,000 people are moving here a year, that's going to put the population at 5 million by 2030. What the last Knight Frank report we saw, which I saw, which was I think last week, they expect from 2024 to 2029 there'll be 300,000 units handover, which is a lot of units. Now the next thing I say to that is, of those 300,000 units, probably 200,000 or more are going to be studios and 1 beds. Right. They're not going to be villas and townhouses. So that's going to continue. But in terms of where do I think Dubai is going, I genuinely believe that the population increase is going to continue. I think what I'm seeing is that people who were thinking about moving to Dubai a few years ago have made the move. Yeah. Their friends who never would have considered it are now thinking about it, and people who never, ever would have done it are now looking to do it. I think that's a massive change over the last few years. I think maybe a hangover from COVID as well,
but people do want to see more of the world.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you can go to the best part of the world, which is Dubai at the moment and will continue to be so, then you're going to do it.
Yeah, and we've got this 2040 vision, the 2040 Urban Master Plan.
Yeah.
And I mean, I say this quite a bit, so sorry to regular watchers, and I have got a couple of regular ones actually. When I first came here in 2004, they were talking about the marina and it was going to take 20 years to build.
Yeah.
We're now in 2024 and it's done, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe a couple more towers are going to be knocked out. So the visions that they have, they come true in most cases.
Yeah, and it's great what you said there, because I say to people, you think what Sheikh Mohammed has been saying for the last 30 years. You know, people didn't used to believe him. He used to come out with these different statements. 30 years later, you look at everything he's done, you know, you've got to believe him now.
Yeah.
You know, everything he said he's going to do, more or less, he has done everything. So now's the time to say, if he says he's going to do this, like he's going to make Expo the most amazing, futuristic, sustainable city in the world, we know it's going to be, and we do believe that.
Yeah. Paul, you covered some great points there. I really appreciate it. Is there anything else you, obviously with contact details, I'll put those in the show notes?
Yes, please.
Should they come to you, well, obviously via House and House?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll put all your details in the show notes, but really appreciate your time today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.